Anyways, we're holding on Daf Gimel Amud Aleph 3A1. We're in the left-hand column with the words Tanya. That means we're at a quarter of the way down on the left-hand column. Okay. Tanya, Reb Nosson Oimer. The pasuk says by the carbon tamid of every day, "Ba'kodesh haseich nesech sheichar LaHashem," and on the holy mizbeach, pour a libation of sheichar, of an intoxicating beverage to Hashem. B'shnei nisuchim hakosim medaber. Here, there's a double lashon of haseich nesech. Pour. Echad nisach hamayim, ve'echad nisach hayayin. Here is an allusion to the idea of nisuch hamayim that takes place on Sukkot. So straight to Gemara, the obvious question, since this pasuk is by the carbon tamid, which is an everyday occurrence, ema tavayot dechamro. Maybe both of them are coming to tell me about wine. That what the carbon tamid maybe needs a double pouring of a libation of wine. Says the Gemara in Cain, if both are coming to tell us about wine, and that every day the carbon tamid needs a double portion of wine, let the pasuk write, oy haseich, oy nesech, my haseich nesech, pour, but we're using, one is a saba haseich and one is a nesech, shma mino chad mayo v'chad chamro. And in fact, we're dealing with one of water and one of wine. The wine is everyday occurrence, and the water is on Sukkot. So said the Gemara, we still learned before regarding when do we begin to say Masha Baruch Moirid Agoshem, when do we start mentioning the power of rain? So says the Gemara like this. Elohad Tanam, we learned in the Mishnah in the Masechta Sukkot, Daf Mem Beis Amud Beis. Nisuch hamayim kol shiva. The nisuch hamayim is all 7 days. Now, all 7 days is kind of open. Doesn't mean all 7 days of Sukkot. What does it mean? Mani, who is that Mishnah in Masechta Sukkot? Rabbi Yeshua, if we're going to say it's Rabbi Yeshua, who says in our Mishnah over here in Masechta Taanis, that you stop being maskir, when on Shmini Atzeres, after Sukkot, like we do today, on Shmini Atzeres, name of Chad Yoima. Then the Mishnah over there in Shavuot should have said that you do the water libation, you do the Nisach HaMayim only one day. Which day? Shmini Atzeres. That's the day you do it, because that's the day we begin to be maskir. Gishamim, Rabbi Akiva who learned before from the extra letters that spelled out the word Mayim, Mem, Yud, Mem, Unisacheho on the 6th day, instead of saying Beniska, it says Unisacheho, right? And so, if according to Rabbi Akiva said it starts on the 6th day, then it's only Trey Yomei. Then the Mishnah should have said that you only have Nisuch HaMayim, how many days? 2 days, the 6th day and the 7th day. So, because that's when we begin to do the remembrance of the power of rain. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, if it's Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, who's also is the one who originally learned that the 2nd day says V'niskehem, and then on the 6th day it says V'niska, and then it says on the 7th day Kimishvatam, which spells out Mayim, since the illusion begins on the 2nd day. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira says that B'shita, that what? That on the 2nd day you begin to be maskir. You begin to remember if that's the case, Shishi Yomer, that it's only 6 days. The 2nd day of Sukkot, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th. Exactly. The 7th day. That's it. I've got 7 days. So how then who is this Mishnah that says you'd say it for 7 days. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. It's Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. But Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira holds you only start saying from the 2nd day. Like Rabbi Yehuda de Masnisen. And what happens is that Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira on one portion is agreeing with the Rabbi Yehuda of our Mishnah. What does the Rabbi Yehuda of our Mishnah hold? That you start saying on Shmini Atzeres. So in other words, it's not Rabbi Yehuda the Kohen would pour the water libations, the Nisa Chamayim with a keli that was the size of a lug, all 8 days of the Yontif, meaning every day of Sukkot, all 7 days, plus on Shmini Atzeres, because on Shmini Atzeres is when he held that you actually go on Mount and remember the power of rain. Umayli Shemini, but according to Rabbi Yehuda and Umayli Shemini. So no, I'm sorry. Beluga Menasakol Shemaino. Umapik Rishon. Now, unlike Rabbi Yehuda of our Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira excludes, does not include day 1 of Sukkot. He starts Nisa Chamayim on the 2nd day of Sukkot because of the allusions in Parshas Pinchas with the extra letters begin B'Yom HaSheni on the 2nd day, the allusions. So therefore, you have 6 days on Sukkot from the 2nd to the 7th that you Nisa Chamayim, Uma'ali Shemini, and he includes the 8th day because, like Rabbi Yehuda of our Mishnah, he agrees that on the 8th day you maskir, and therefore you go ahead, you have Nisa Chamayim as well. So, Frank, the Gemara, wait a minute. Umay Shana Rishon the lie. Why does Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira not do Nisa Chamayim on the 1st day of Sukkot? The Chirani Mayim, because when the Torah alludes to Mem Yud Mem, the extra letters of Mem Yud Mem Mayim, it starts when B'Sheni Udimimizi. It starts the beginning of that illusion with the extra letter during the saying of B'Yom HaSheni. It says, instead of saying the Niska, what does it say? It says the Niskehem on the 2nd day. That's where it begins with the extra mem of the Niskehem. That's why you skip it, and I Bezai Shemini Nami, then this 8th day should also be excluded. Ki Ramzi Mayin, because the last letter of Mem, Unisok, the last letter Kimishpatam, instead of Kimishpatai, it says Kimishpatam, and an extra Mem. When does it appear? Bishni Hudaramizi. Its illusion is on the 7th day, so then you should stop on the 7th day, which means therefore the Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira does not agree with Rabbi Yehuda that the Nisa Chamayim continues on to the 8th day, Shmini Atzeres. So how could you tell me that he is the Tanur of our Mishnah in Sukkot that says it goes that you did Nisa Chamayim for 7 days? If he holds you begin on the 2nd day, because that's when the biblical illusion began with the Niskehem, with the extra mem, it ends, the illusion ends on the 7th day, Kimishpatom. So therefore he only has 6 days in which the Nisa Chamayim takes place, not 7. So says the Gemara, you're right. Ella Rabbi Yeshua. Ella, we have to say the Tana of our Mishnah, of the Mishnah in Sukkot, is Rabbi Yeshua. Even though Rabbi Yeshua holds, we're now on 382. Even though Rabbi Yeshua holds that we do not say Masha Baruch HaMayir Gosh in the power of rain until Shmini Atzeres, the way we hold, nonetheless, he agrees that Nisa Chamayim happens earlier. In other words, we decouple the idea that Nisa Chamayim and the remembrance of the power of rain are together, are linked together. No. Shmini Atzeres is when you begin to be maskir, gevuras kisham and mashav ruach hamayir. But Nisa Chamayim took place earlier. The Nisa Chamayim Kol Shiva, and in fact, Nisa Chamayim takes place on all 7 days of Sukkot, Hilchasa Gemirah, because we learn it from an halacha l'Moshe Sinai. K'de Amar Rav Ami Amar Rav Yochanan, Mishum Reb Nechumi Ish Bikas Beis Charton. In the name of Reb Ami says, in the name of Rav Yochanan, in the name of Reb Nechemi, the resident of the valley of Beis Charton. Esenetias, the halacha regarding the 10 samplings. We're talking about in the Shemitah here. If there are 10 samplings of trees that were just planted to a base saw, okay? A base saw is about 2,500 square amas, okay? Now, the rule is that starting 30 days before Shemitah begins, that means with Rosh Chodesh Elul of the 6th year, you have to stop plowing and taking care of the stuff, because the plowing and everything else that you're going to do now is going to affect the roots that are going to grow when on Shemitah. So you stop a month before, except when it comes to 10 samplings of trees within a base saw, who, because of the amount of nourishment they need to be nourished to keep them alive, trees need a lot of nourishment. That's why they have the deep roots. Therefore, you're allowed to do work with them. You don't have to you don't have to watch your trees die out, your young trees die out, because you weren't able to take care of them. That's the halacha of the Esed Netiyos. Tosfos, the second Tosfos, goes through all the halachas with regard to this halacha with various different types of growths. When do you have to stop plowing and being chayrish with them before Shavuos? So the Esed Netiyos are allowed before, all the way up to the beginning of Shemitah with Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. And Arava, the Hashanah ceremony carried out in the Beis Hamikdash on Sukkot, which, if you look at the third Tosfos, the small Tosfos, Arava says, Shemakifin es hamizbeach, that they circled the mizbeach. The circling of the mizbeach, just to remind everybody that we learned this in Masechtas Sukkot, they either stacked up these tall 11 amas high willows, so that the tops of the branches arched over the mizbeach, and they would dance, they would circle around the mizbeach that was now surrounded with the aravas, or they would carry the aravas in their hands and go around the mizbeach. Either way, this is the tradition that we now carry forward today when we do a Shanis on a Shana Rabbah. All of these, the Nisu Chamayim, for 7 days of Sukkot, halacha l'Moshe Sinai. Now, back to the brisa that we mentioned before. Rabbi Yehuda Amar Bishum Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rabbi Yeshua, one who goes to daven for the Amid on Shmini Atzeres, Ha'achron, the one who davens Musaf, Maskir is the one that first mentions Mashiach Baruch Hu Hashem. Harisha, the one who davens Shachrit, saying a Maskir, he still doesn't mention it. B'yontef Harisha shel Pesach, but on the first day of Yontef for Pesach, Harisha Maskir, the one who davens Shachris for the Amid, for the Shliach Tzibur for Shachris, he still mentions Mashiach Baruch Hu Hashem. Ha'achron eina Maskir. But the one who davens Musaf on Pesach, he's the one who stops saying Mashiach Baruch Hu Hashem. And we said again, because of we called it, we want a lot of people there, what it called when we arrive home, Hadras Melech. So now the Gemara says, "Hi, Rabbi Yeshua. Who is this Rabbi Yeshua that Rabbi Yehuda is mentioning?" Because we've got regular Rabbi Yeshua, we've got Rabbi Yeshua ben Beseira, right? So let's see how we go. Hi, Rabbi Yeshua. Ilay Rabbi Yeshua Tamasnisen. If you want to say it's the Rabbi Yeshua of our Mishnah says what? That on Shmini Atzeres, you would start remembering Masha Baruch Goshem. Wait a minute. Isn't that what this Brisa just said? That you remember, you also remember Masha Baruch Goshem on Shmini Atzeres. The difference is the Brisa says, when do you start remembering it? By Musaf. This Mishnah seems to be saying, beyond time, in the daytime of the last Yom Tov of Shmini Atzeres, meaning you start saying it by Shachris, not Musaf. So says the Gemara, Ella, Rabbi Yeshua de Beraisa. You want to say it's Rabbi Yeshua of the Beraisa. But Rabbi Yeshua of the Beraisa said, if you remember yesterday's daf, that it's tied to the time you stop being masking, you start saying Mashiach from the time that the Lulav and Esrik, Adas and the Arabas, the Arba Minim are put down on the seventh day. In other words, that when do you stop being maski Baruch Goshem on Shmini Atzeres at Ma'ariv? Because when does the mitzvah of Lulav end? At the end of the seventh day. So the beginning of the eighth day, which starts at night, which is Ma'ariv, you should start saying Masha Baruch Goshem. So if it's Rabbi Yeshua of our Mishnah, it's mashma by Shachris. If it's Rabbi Yeshua of the Beraisa that says it's tied to putting down the Lulav and Esrig, it should be Ma'ariv. Who's the one that says it's Musaf? Which Rabbi Yeshua are you referring to? That it should be Musaf. Disu, Taanis. You want to come up with another answer? Rabbi Yehuda Omar Mishum ben Beseira. It doesn't say Rabbi Yeshua ben Beseira or Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. It says Mishum ben Beseira. When one goes to be the Shliach Tzibor Shmini Atzeres or Achrei Maskir, the last one, the Baal Musaf, is the one who starts mentioning Masha Baruch Goshem. Okay, so now maybe we have our time. We have the Tana of our Brisa, which would be Ben Beseira. But says the Gemara, hi Ben Beseira. Who is this Ben Beseira? Rabbi Yehuda Ben Beseira. If you're going to tell me it's Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, it can't be. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira is the one that says that on the second day of Sukkot, you start remembering the power of rain. You start saying Mashiach Baruch Goshem, because Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira is the one that says we base it on the illusions that the Torah mentions with the extra letters in Parashas Pinchas. And the first one is B'Yom HaSheni, where it says B'Niskeihem. Instead of B'Niska, it has an extra mem that begins on the second day, not on the eighth day on Shmini Atzeres, but on the second day of Sukkot, you begin to be Mashiach Baruch Goshem. So that can't be him. So Amar Rab Nachman Bar Yitzchak, Tehei, in fact, both the Beraisa that says you start saying Mashiach Baruch Goshem by Musaf, and the Beraisa over here that also says from Ben Beseira that you start saying Mashiach Baruch Goshem by Musaf and Shmini Atzeres. Both of them, you know who it is? It is a Ben Beseira, but it's not Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, it's his brother, Rabbi Yeshua ben Beseira. Don't get mixed up. One brother was Yehuda, one brother was Yeshua. Rabbi Yeshua ben Beseira was the brother known as Rabbi Yeshua ben Beseira. Zimnin de Kari Levi Shmei. Sometimes Rabbi Yehuda called him by his own name. In other words, Rabbi Yeshua. We're on 3A3. Zimnin de Kari Levi Shmei Da'aba. Sometimes he called him by his father's name. In other words, he just called him Amar Rabbi Yehuda Mishum ben Beseira instead of Rabbi Yeshua ben Beseira. Why? When he said ben Beseira was before he got his semicha. And here it's after he got his semicha. After he got his semicha. So in reality, the Brisa mentioned before, and this second Brisa, that both seem to say that the one that says Rabbi Yehuda Amar Mishum Rabbi Yeshua, and the Brisa that says Rabbi Yehuda Amar Mishum Ben Beseira is in fact talking about both the same person, Rabbi Yeshua Ben Beseira, not Rabbi Yehuda Ben Beseira, but his brother Rabbi Yeshua Ben Beseira, and therefore he's the Tana of our Mishnah that says that of our Brisa over here that says you start saying Masha Baruch Amened Agoshem by Shmini Atzeres. That's when you do it, and that's the way we hold. Good. Brisa goes further. Tana, we learned. The Chachamim did not obligate one to mention the praise for do and wins. The Ebola ask it, but if one wants to do it, Maske, you're allowed to. In other words, we say Mashiv Ruach Umoyrid Atol, right? We say Moyrid Atol. Those of us who daven Svard, we say Mashiv Ruach Umoyrid Atol, who makes the wind blow and makes the dew fall, right? You're not obligated to say it, period, even in the rainy season, right? Ours, we always do say Mashiv Ruach Umoyrid Agoshem, that makes the wind blow and makes the rain fall. But in fact, if all you want to say is Moirid Agoshem, who makes the rain fall, Moirid Agoshem, who makes the rain fall, and you don't want to say Mashiv Ruach, it's perfectly fine. You don't have to. As this Gemara says, my time, what's the reason? Omer Rabbi Chanina, Lepi She'ein, not Sorin, because they're never withheld. The world cannot survive without the dew and the wind. But how do I know that dew is never withheld? It says, and Eliyahu Atishbi was one of the inhabitants of Gilad, said to the terrible king Achab, by the life of Hashem, the God of Israel, before whom I stand, there shall be no dew or rain these years, the next 3 years, except according to my word. And it's written later, after 3 years pass, that Hashem told Eliyahu Hanavi, go and appear before Yaakov. And I will send rain upon the earth. But Hashem does not mention dew to him. And remember, Eliyahu told Yaakov, Tal umatar, dew and rain. My Tama, why is it omitted when Hashem mentions it to him? Mishum, because, and now we're on Amid Beis, Gimel Amid Beis, 3b1, Deloy Ma'atza, because dew is never withheld. It's very to Gemara the obvious question. If dew is never withheld, Eliyahu ishtabui lamalei. Why did Eliyahu swear to Achab that he's going to withhold the rain and the dew? And for the Gemara, this is what Eliyahu was telling Yaakov. Afilu tal de bracha nami lo yosa. Even dew of blessing will not fall. Dew will fall, but it will not be the dew of blessing. No, it will not cause plant growth. But then in that case, after 3 years, let Hashem restore the tal of bracha. Since a human being can't tell the difference between dew of blessing and dew of not blessing, Eliyahu didn't mention it, so because then Achav would have made fun of him. So it said, how do we know that winds are never withheld? Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, the Omakra, Ki ka'ar beruchis hashamayim perashti eschem numa Hashem. For like the 4 winds of the heavens, Ki'arba, like the 4 winds of the heaven, I have spread you, Klal Yisrael, says Hashem. My Kamalu, what is Hashem telling us? If this is what you're saying, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling Klal Yisrael, that I have scattered you to the four corners of the earth. It shouldn't say like the four corners. It should have said to the four corners. This is what is meant to be said. Just like it's impossible for the world to exist without winds, it's impossible for the world to exist without Klal Yisrael. Zok Rashi, about 10 lines down in the skinny lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Below Yisrael. Jerry, you have it? I'm open. She'ein ha'olam miskaymin elo b'shvil Yisrael.
I got it.
Okay, you got it. She'ein ha'olam miskaymin elo b'shvil Yisrael. Because the world has no kiyum, cannot stand only because of Klal Yisrael. V'hachi omakra. And this is what the pasuk means. Ki kedalit ruchis hashamayim perashti eschem. Because like the four corners of the heavens, I have spread you out. L'ruchis ha'olam, to the corners of the world. Kedei sheyiskayim, in order to uphold Shenema, what it says in Yirmiyah. Im loy berisi yoimam v'layla. If it wasn't for my covenant yoimam v'layla, of day and night, chukas shemayim v'aretz loisamti, the rule of heaven and earth would not stand. What is the covenant of yoimam v'layla? V'higisa by yoimam v'layla. And you should be here, Hegyoin. You should be dwell into the Torah Yoima v'layla. If it wasn't for the fact that in the four corners of the earth there are Jews that are learning at every given moment, given that time is different, in some places it's night, and sometimes places it's day, at any given moment there is a Jew learning Torah, the Gisa Yoima v'layla. They are holding up the bris of Yoima v'layla, the Torah. Chukas Shemayim, therefore, is something the world stands. If Chas v'Shalom, there would ever be a moment when the world did not have some Torah in it, right? The world would no longer exist because that is the entire purpose. So it turns out that we who are sitting learning Daf Yomi are part and parcel of those that are keeping the world turning, which is also the idea of the wind. The wind blows and keeps things moving, and there the wind is like the wind up. It's like the physical manifestation of the turns of the great clock of the universe. And again, the idea, of course, is that water is compared to Torah. Just like life cannot exist without rain, water, so too life cannot exist without Torah. Omer Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Chanina says, Hilkach, b'yamai chama, therefore in the summertime between Pesach and Sukkot, Omer Mashiv Ruach, if one wants to say he makes the wind blow, he doesn't have to turn, he doesn't have to return to the beginning of the blessing. Omar, but if he says he makes the rainfall during the months between Pesach and Sukkot, which is not the rainy season, he returns to the beginning of the bracha and says it without the insertion. In the rainy season, in the winter, if he does not say the phrase, he makes the wind blow, he doesn't have to return to the beginning. If he does not say he makes the rain fall, he must return. But if he decides to say he removes the wind and makes the dew fly away, he doesn't have to return to the beginning, because the prayer is a meaningless prayer, because in fact the winds and the dew never stop. Tana, we learned Regarding clouds or winds in Shemona Esrei, you don't have to mention it. But if you want to mention it, maski, you can mention it. My tama, mishum delay ma'atzrei, because they are never withheld. L'loy ma'atzrei, but clouds and wind are never withheld. But Tani, we learn 3b2, 3b2. Rabbi Yosef taught. It says in Shema, V'hoyim Shemoya, V'otzar es HaShemayim, and Hashem will restrain the heavens. What does that mean? Mino avim and mino ruchas. The pashtus must mean the clouds and the winds. Says the Gemara, do you really mean to say that when it means I will restrain the heavens, it means I will restrain it from wind and clouds? Maybe it means I'll just restrain it from bringing rain, from providing rain. When the pasuk continues and says, what it called, there will be no rain, it already says about withholding the rain. So therefore, what does it mean that we restrain the heavens? It means that the heavens will not provide clouds and winds. If that's the case, this brisa is a contradiction to the previous brisa that says the winds will never be withheld, and this brisa which says the clouds will be withheld is a contradiction to the previous brisa that says clouds will never be withheld. So Zakti Gemara, clouds to clouds is not a contradiction. The one that says they'll never be withheld, those are the early clouds that come before the rain. This is the clouds that come after the rain. Ruchais aruchais leikasha. Again, the winds, yes winds, no winds, is no contradiction. Ruach mitsuya. The brisa that said the wind will always blow, those are the normal winds. Ruach she'ena mitsuya. But the other one means the extraordinary winds. Right? The Gemara Ruach she'ena mitsuya chadilei ledorei. But extraordinary winds are appropriate for removing the shaft from the grain in the silo. So it should be obligatory to mention the winds for which there is a purpose for. So you should be obligated to say Mashiv Ruach, that the wind blows. Something Gemara, and this is unbelievable. It says like this: even though you're right, we could use the winds to separate the shaft. It's possible to move the shaft from the grain with sieves, right? We have a technical way of doing it. So therefore, the extraordinary wind is not essential. So where technology can be used, then the nature of it is not essential. It's only where it's absolutely essential, like rain, right? The world can't do without rain. That must be mentioned. Tana, we learned in the Brisa. In fact, clouds and winds are secondary to rain. They're almost as beneficial as rain. What's the case? We're talking about clouds and winds that come after the rain. So you see that's advantageous. A wind following a rainfall is advantageous. We learned in a pasuk. This is during the Teichacha, the rebuke, the terrible rebuke over in Pashas Kisaboy. It says like this: Yitein Hashem es mitar atzcha avot va'afa. Hashem will make the rain of your land dust and dirt. Va'amu ula v'yitein Rabbi Yehuda zika the bosa mitzvah. And ula, and some say Rabbi Yehuda means the wind that blows after the rainfall that causes damage by stirring up the dirt, which then clings to the wet crops. So this is a steer to what we learned before, that the post-rain winds are beneficial. Like kasha, it's not a kasha. We're talking about the rains that fall gently. We're talking about the rains that fall forcefully. Okay? That fall forcefully. This type of rain, the forceful raises dust and is detrimental. The other rain is gentle and does not raise dust. And along the same lines, wind after a rainfall is almost as beneficial as the rain itself. clouds after a rainfall are almost as beneficial as the rain. Shimsha the basa mitra kitrei mitre. And sunshine after a rainfall is beneficial as two rainfalls. You give a list. Obviously, you mean to exclude something. It includes flashes of lights which happen at night. Sometimes, let's say, a lightning flash at night. The shimsh the bene karka, and sunlight that appears between the bald patches of clouds. That mostly it's cloud, and you get a weak shaft of sunlight through the clouds. Omarova, male talga leture bechamshim mitre laara. 30b3. Snow is as beneficial to mountains as rainfall are to the ground. Shenema ki l'sheleg yoima hey heve eretz v'geshem mota v'geshem mitre suzai. For he said to the snow, be on the ground, likewise to the shower of rain, the shower of his mighty rains. So that means the mention of rain is mentioned twice in the pasuk. That means that snow is compared. Actually, it's not mentioned twice. It's mentioned 5 times in that pasuk. So that means snow is compared to 5 rainfalls. V'amarava talya leture. Snow is beneficial to the mountains, and the reason is because the snow on the mountains ultimately melts and flows down into the rivers, which flows down into the seas. So it's the snow on top of the mountains that provides the water. V'amarava tilga leture. Snow is beneficial to the on the mountains. Mitra l'ravi li'iloi. Heavy rain is beneficial to trees. Mitra nicha lepere. Gentle rain is beneficial to produce. Dalet of an aleph. We're just going to end over here on top. Right, we're going to finish the sugya 4a1. Oirfila, which article as right now is touching up a light rain. Is beneficial even to the seeds beneath a clod of dirt. In other words, in between the cracks in the sidewalks, it's good for the things in between the cracks of the sidewalks. My orfila, what does it mean, orfila? Uri pile, awaken seeds which are in the cracks. In other words, the cracks in the sidewalks, the things grow over there. V'ama Rava, hi tzurba de Rabbanon. Students, Talmidim, the young teenage Talmidim. Domilitz Bartzida de Tuse Kala are like those seeds beneath the clod of earth. Novat. Once he begins to sprout, right? Once his Torah begins to flow, it keeps on flowing. V'ama Rava, hi tzurba de Rabbanon de Rosach. These young Talmidim that some get quickly angry are raisu to come around. No, it's the Torah that's in him that's causing him to become heated. Shenema haloi koi dobre ka'esh num Hashem. Is my word not like a fire, says Hashem. So the new teenagers that are being introduced to the word of Hashem, the fire within, right, makes them short. So it's not just because they're teenagers that they blow up. It's also because of the Torah that's inside them. Very nice way of looking at things. V'amar Rav Ashi, just a couple of minutes more. V'amar Rav Ashi, kol talmid chacham she'nei kosher kebarzel. Any talmid chacham who is not hard like iron, not steady fast. Any talmid chacham is not a talmid chacham. Shenema pashit yifoitzeit sela, like a hammer that shatters the rock. The Torah and those who teach it are compared to a hammer. Amalei Rav Abba Rav Ashi, Atun me'osam esniolo. Learn from here. Ana ma'osam inolo. But we learn it out from here, from a different pasuk. Tiksiv, Eretz asher abonel barzel, a land whose stones are iron. Al tikrei abonel, its stones. Ela boinel, its builders. Amar Ravina, this is the last thing we're learning today. Nonetheless, even though you need to be steadfast and an iron, the person must train himself to be calm. And remove anger from your heart. In other words, you need to be like Rabbi Gibber. Rabbi Gibber is the perfect example of somebody who's steadfast within what it called his yeshivishkeit and the way he wants the problem, but he has an approach to people that's calm, that's neimus, that's beautiful, which is extraordinarily unique because in truth, it's very, very hard. The one other thing to learn is, notice, gentle rain is always better than heavy rain. That is telling us how to behave. It's a lot better if you want to get your point across. Be a gentle rain. Don't come, in other words, don't be aggressive, be assertive. Being aggressive is not the Torah way. Being assertive is the Torah way. It's perfectly right to have your opinion. But remember that the guy next to you also has his right to have his opinion. Too often we're aggressive in stating our opinions. We're aggressive in stating our opinions, and essentially what we're doing is canceling the other guy's opinion. And the Gemara here is alluding to this in this discussion of rain, which of course rain is always an allegory to Torah, how a Torah person is supposed to behave. Halavai, we should reach that madrega. Jerry